So I want to go ahead and discuss now the next fractal here. So you've just investigated the Sierpinski carpet, and the next fractal here I've decided while I was waiting for my computer to process the last video, I decided that I would dub this one the Purina. Whoops, the Purina fractal. So. And the name will come from the logo for Purina pet food, which is this kind of checkerboard with five solid squares here pattern. And so let's just talk briefly about how that is constructed. In fact, it's constructed in a very similar way to the Sierpinski carpet, but of course, and so you can see that these both sort of involve squares, but you can also see that they have a very different look. But it turns out nevertheless that the method for constructing them is very, very similar. So in the Sierpinski carpet construction, you can start with a solid square, and at each stage you can subdivide the solid square. So at the first stage, subdivide the solid square into 9 subsquares, like you see here with the pink, and then remove the middle square. And then at each subsequent stage, you now take any of the remaining or the previous stage squares and remove the middle square from that, and continue. Alternatively, you can think that at each stage, what you would do is shrink the previous stage by a factor of 3, right? So, in fact, here, right, this is 1/3 if the whole fractal is length 1, right? So each of these smaller 9 squares that we could divide the square into would have length 1/3 of the original length. And so you could imagine taking 8 copies that have been shrunk by 1/3 and arranging them around in a square like this, and continuing in that manner. So I hope that's clear. Let me describe the Purina fractal, and that might kind of help that settle in if you have other questions about that. So let's talk about this Purina fractal. And so let me go ahead and so we'll label stage 0. So what are we going to start with? We'll start with a solid square. Whoops. It's not very square-like. Okay, we'll start with a solid square. And so this is going to be all colored in. Okay, and then what we'll do in the next stage is we will shrink this down by 1/3 again, and we will put together 5 copies of the shrunken down square. So so to get from stage 0 to stage 1, we just take 5 copies of this square here, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab that, copy it, paste it, paste it, paste it, and I'll paste it. Okay, so let me, whoops. Oh, let's see, I don't think that quite worked well. So I think I have to move it while it's there. Okay, and then we'll add this one here, and we'll add one more here. Okay, and so now I've got my stage 1 fractal, and then I can copy it. Whoops. Not grab part of the arrow. Whoops, let me also not grab part of the G. Okay, copy this, and we will paste 5 copies of this. So, whoops, let's delete that. Okay, and then I want to shrink, whoops. I want to shrink this down. And I want to create 5 copies of it. Oops, let's move this. Okay, and so here's my stage 3 fractal, sorry, my stage 2 fractal, right? And another way, again, of thinking about this is the alternate way to think about this would be to cut the original square up into 9 squares and then remove the 4 squares that I'm shading to go from stage 0 to stage 1. And then to go from stage 1 to stage 2, you would take each of these new smaller squares that remain, and you would remove all of the pink, right, to get to the stage 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo this because I don't want the pink to get confused with what is part of the fractal or not. But I just want you to see that there's 2 ways of thinking about this construction. Okay, and so then we would continue, and I'm going to just write ... So there's the Purina fractal.